everybody, how you doing tonight? Welcome to the channel. Tonight I'm going to be talking about the Dune movie and my thoughts on it. This movie is based on a book by Frank Herbert. I've actually never read the book. I attempted to read it many years ago. I bought it probably about 10-12 years ago, and I've tried to read that book a couple of times, and it was just too much for me. It was too, as much as I wanted to read it, because science fiction's right up my alley, and I know it's a very popular book, and I know that it's kind of got this cult following. And I bought it with the expectation of getting into that lore and wanting to know what it was all about. And there have been other movies. I think there was two, like 2000. I think in 2000, I think there was a movie, and then they did another one. There was one before that in the 80s. But and I never seen either of those movies. But the book was, I tried twice to read this book, and I got through about 10-12 pages, and I felt like I didn't learn anything as I was reading. It was just a hard read, and I'm not a huge reader. I've read some books in my day, but I'm not one of those people who's constantly buying books and reading books. That's not really my thing, but I tried. So going into this movie, I didn't really have any sort of preconceived notions. I didn't have any expectations in terms of lore and would it be a good adaptation to anything that I knew. So going into this, it was cold for me. It was like a cold read. I had no idea what was going on, which was, I think it was, for me, it was in my benefit. I appreciated that, because sometimes you can get caught up in what a movie should be. And I talked a little bit about that with the Uncharted movie. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. The Uncharted movie trailer release. As a gamer and a person who's played those games, I think sometimes that does cloud your judgment, and it clouds mine a little bit. But I try my best not to let it, I don't want to go in with like a really negative attitude and expecting it to just suck. So for this movie, it was all fresh for me, which I was very excited about. But yeah, it's based on a book written by Frank Herbert. It's directed by, and I don't know if I'm going to say this right. I doubt it. I'm American, so I'm going to say it like an American first. Denis Villeneuve, I think, right? But I believe he's French, and it's like Denis Villeneuve or something like that. I'm not trying to disrespect the man. I'm actually a very big fan of this director. He directed two movies that I really liked. The first Sicario movie, which is fantastic. I absolutely love that movie. It's dark and gritty, and it's a movie that's not for everybody, but I definitely loved it. And pardon me. And the other movie that I've seen of his is Blade Runner 2049. And I know some people don't like that movie, being fans of the original Blade Runner. Totally get it. Totally understand. I get that maybe it didn't carry on the story as it should have been. And I know there's a big argument to be made that the first movie was fine just as is, and making a sequel wasn't a good idea. And again, that movie 2049 was decades later. So, and I totally get that. I'm not a big fan of movies doing that myself. So kind of like The Matrix Resurrections, not a big fan of doing a sequel 20 years later. But anyways, I like this director. I think he's good. Tonight, my allergies have been crazy today, so I'm probably going to be sniffling, going to be clearing my throat. I've taken my allergy medicine. That's the best I can do, so I apologize in advance. But anyways, back to the movie. I really liked it. I'm going to go into this right off the gate. I'm going to tell you, I liked this movie. I really enjoyed it. I thought that it captured everything that I want in a movie. The first thing being the score. I thought the score was fantastic, and the score was done by a man named Hans Zimmer, and I'm a big fan of his. And I forgot to do a little bit of digging on him personally, but I've listened to his scores just like after movies and stuff. He's done lots of music for big movies, and they always get me. He is so good at delivering a score that has emotion and impact, and it grabs me every time. I think he's fantastic. I'm not sure. I think he might have done the Blade Runner 2049, but don't quote me. I'm not sure. But I wouldn't be shocked, because again, I thought that score in that movie was great too. But this one was it was killer. And there's a lot, if you don't know anything about this director, he loves to do slow motion, powerful music, a lot of facial acting where they're just sort of, it's all in the eyes and it's all in their, the grimace or the smile or the smirk or the tears. He does that a lot in his movies, and I think I appreciate it. I really do. I definitely appreciate the way he directs actors. And he kind of rolls with, he keeps some of the, how some directors, they'll have the same actors in their movies. He kind of does that. There's a few of his actors from other movies in this one too, but I'm a big fan of the score. Loved it. I thought it was awesome. And I'm gonna keep looking down. Going through some of my notes here. The only thing that I thought was a setback when it came to the music was, I'm trying to think of another movie. Interstellar was another movie, and I don't remember who did the director. I don't remember who was the score, but this is just an example. When the music is so loud, you can't hear the voices. You can't hear the dialogue. That happens in this movie more than once, and I had to stop and rewind a couple of times because I couldn't hear it, and I watched it with my wife in my home and on HBO Max, and there's times where, and my wife, she really doesn't like that, and so there's a couple of times where I would pause. I'm like, "Did you catch that?" And she's like, "No, I can't understand anything that's going on." So I get it. There's going to be some people that might complain about that, but for the most part, I can, when the music's that good and the score is that powerful and it's just orchestrated in such a way that it moves me emotionally, I can let that slide. And in this case, I'm gonna let it slide. But just knowing going into this that there's gonna be times where it's like the music just booming, and people are just talking, or they're even whispering, or they're crying, and they're saying, or they're speaking their lines, and it's like, I can't hear anything you're saying. I don't know what you're saying. So anyways, that's probably the only flaw that I saw when it came to the sound of the vehicles, the sound of the weapons. They had some really cool tech weapons and things, and the ships that they flew. Great sound effects. There's the explosions had just that deep bass, and they weren't just like standard explosions. They had a very sci-fi feel. So I thought overall, the sound was a 10 for me. The costumes, I'm a big fan of costumes, and I'm a big fan of everything being clean and pristine. And I love it when they have these ceremonial type moments where, and in case you don't know, and just to back up for a second, I do want to go back. Sorry about this. I meant to say this earlier. I'm not going to be spoiling this movie. I'm not going to be talking about anything in terms of plot. This movie just came out, so you'll get no spoilers here. I'm not going to talk about, I'm not going to give away anything, the ending or nothing like that. I might talk a little bit about things lightly, but I won't be spoiling this, just so you know. But this movie, going back to the costumes, and like the movie is about these families. They're like houses. They call them houses, kind of like a kind of Game of Thrones-ish, where they say house so and so and they give their name. That they use the same terms, and they speak in a way like it's the dialogue is very much dated back to like medieval times, or really a long time ago, and sort of that kings and castles and queens and that type of stuff, like that sort of medieval speak. But they do, and the ceremonies and things, like when they exit a ship, they're in formation, and the way the military lines up. I love that. It's very uniformed and it's very clean, and the costumes I think are sick. I really enjoyed all of the costumes. Everyone, especially early on, before the movie really takes off. So again, this isn't a huge spoiler, but just so you know, they do travel to a planet that's the desert planet, and where they start off, they're not, and it's lush and it's green and there's mountains and stuff, and they're wearing excuse me, they're wearing costumes that they fit sort of that cooler weather, and I just thought they were badass. I really did. I really enjoyed the costumes. The only thing I didn't like in regards to the costumes was the battle armor. There are multiple militant groups, and I thought the battle armor was kind of cheesy. It didn't look good. Some of the suits, you know, in terms of like the characters and the things that they wear for the desert, like there's a really cool suit that they wear to survive in the desert that takes all of the person's sweat and fluids and recycles them and then feeds them back into you, because this planet that they're on, or that they go to, is extremely dry. It's desert, it's all sand, and it's the way you can survive on this planet. Those suits, I thought those suits were pretty cool. There's a couple of quirky little things about them I didn't necessarily like, but the battle armor, particularly with the militaries when they fight each other, I thought they were kind of cheesy. They weren't the best. Especially and I don't remember the names of the houses or whatever. And like I said, I'm not going to get into those nitty gritty details, but the main character, who is his name's Paul, and he is played by a young man named Timothy Chalamet. I don't know how young he is. I say young because he looks like a little boy to me. But Timothy Chalamet, I think is how you say his name. I thought he was great. I thought he was really good. But his house, his father is in charge. He's the man. He's the king, or I don't know if they call him a king, but the emperor. But their military that they wear, the garb, I wasn't really feeling it. It's kind of clunky and just didn't really look that good. But other than that, I was pretty much cool with the costumes. I really thought they looked really good. The cinematography, fantastic. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. Stunning. A lot of wide shots, a lot of big sets. And like I said before, I watched this in my home, and it had nothing to do with not wanting to go to the theater. I wanted to go see this in an IMAX theater this past weekend, but I had so many things to do, and the weekend just got away from me. And I was just like, okay. And I didn't want to wait another weekend or try to cram it in out a day after work. So I just said, to hell with it. We'll just watch it at my house. And I have a decent TV. It's not, you know, nothing crazy, but it's a nice model TV. It's just a little bit old. It's like 5 years old. And you know, my wife and we just scooted our recliners up close to it. And I have a pretty decent surround sound. And I had that cranked. I had that shit up like to 11. And even then the voices were still kind of hard to hear sometimes, but the experience I thought was good. It's streaming. So sometimes, you know how streaming is, it gets a little, it gets a little pixelated a few times. It did that, but outside of that, I was okay with it. But if you haven't seen this movie, I highly recommend seeing it in IMAX. I know a lot of people say that shit, and they'll say, oh, you got to see this in IMAX. This movie was built for IMAX. And I don't really, like, they say that, and then I go watch it, and it's like, I could have seen this in like regular screen, or I could have seen this at my house, or it would have been fine. This movie, I really believe that this movie is best experienced in an IMAX theater. I really do. So if you haven't seen it, I really recommend it. I think you will appreciate it more if it's in a big theater. So much so that after this movie was over, I was already contemplating going back, because I want to watch it again already. I want to see it again. And I was contemplating, like, maybe I will go to a theater and actually watch this. I might actually do that, because this is a movie that was totally worth my time, and it's definitely worth my money. So I may do that. So if you haven't seen it, my recommendation, IMAX first. The acting I thought was really good. The cast is like, there was a lot of faces that I knew in this cast, and I knew this going in, but my wife she didn't know anything about this. And as we're watching the movie, you know, Jason Momoa shows up, Josh Brolin shows up, and then Javier Bardem shows up, and it's like, she's like, oh, all these people, it's like surprise. And you know, Oscar Isaac, I mean, he's a big name now. So there were a lot of actors in this movie that I really like their work already. So it kind of added to the fire for me. It was good to see them on screen. I didn't think the acting was like off the charts. The best, for sure, like the standout for me, was the main character, Timothy Chalamet. And I know I'm probably not saying that right, but I thought he was great. When I first saw him, I was wondering if it was going to be another brooding teenager, doesn't smile, disrespectful, doesn't know what's good for him and doesn't realize how great he has it. No, that's not at all his character, which for me was a relief. I think he's very, very well versed, and I appreciated the moment to moment with him. He is a person he's a young man on a journey, and I really felt like I was going on this journey with him. And I thought that he portrayed his character very well. I didn't think that he overacted in any way. I didn't think that he underperformed. I really thought he did great. And he's the lead, so you kind of expect that. But for me personally, I thought he was really good. And I've never seen him in anything. This is the first movie I've ever seen him in. And, good on you, Tim. You did great, kid. Good for you. The rest of the cast, Oscar Isaac, I'm a fan of his too. Seen him in a lot of movies. I thought he was really good. He plays Paul's dad, the Emperor, and I thought he did really good. But for me, it's like I expect you to do well because you're a good actor. I've seen you do well, so if he came out and sucked, I'd be like, dude, what the hell's going on? But I thought he was really good. Jason Momoa is another big name. Josh Brolin, another big name. Dave Bautista, who is now, he's a big name now. I mean, I remember him back in the WWE days, back when it was, like back in the day. I used to watch WWE back in like the late 90s and early 2000s. No, I think it was called like the Attitude Era. But anyways, I was around when he was getting into wrestling when he first came in. And when he got into acting, I thought, here we go again. Another wrestler who wants to be The Rock, because that's just the path. The Rock, I think he is really formed into a good actor. I think you start off rough, but when Dave Bautista followed in those footsteps, I was like, this guy, I don't think he's going to be that good. He actually has grown on me. He really has. I think Guardians of the Galaxy elevated him and his game, and his acting abilities were really, he was perfectly cast for Guardians. In this movie, he's a little more typical, like he's a very one-note type character. And I wanted to see more of him sort of, kind of, show off some of his acting chops. I thought he was kind of one note, but his character is kind of a one note character. So I don't know. I'm not gonna hate on him or anything like that, but he was a little, he has and I don't know if it's part of the character, because again, I've never read the books, so I don't know anything about this. I don't know if they're acting the way they should or as they were portrayed in the book. I don't know. But he has this kind of goofy look all the time. His mouth's always like, his mouth's always open. And I'm like, okay, but it's Dave Bautista. I like him. I got respect for him, so I'm not going to hate on him. And but I thought he was a little, and you don't see him that much, by the way. Jason Momoa, I think Jason Momoa, he is another actor whom I really like. I really liked him in Aquaman. I've seen him in other movies. Obviously, he was in Game of Thrones, and that really was like he could really get away with, him being just sort of this like big, like stud muffin with muscles and everything, because he played like a brute warrior type person. So his physique alone, I mean, the dude's massive. He's just yoked. He's not as big in this movie. Actually, I kind of noticed he looked a little soft in the cheeks, and I'm not talking trash because I'm soft all over the place. I mean, I'm not like I'm ripped or anything, but I thought he did a good job. I thought he did Jason Momoa acting, but he didn't really have any moments where he could like shine. Like, so to me, I thought he was okay. Brolin, actually in Brolin too, I mean, Brolin, he's been around. He was like, I remember him in the Goonies. I remember when he was, Bran in the Goonies, and then all of a sudden he came back and he's doing all these roles, and he has laid a path in Hollywood, a very good one in terms of his acting career. So I was really expecting a little bit more out of him, but again, he did good. And again, I want to be very clear. I'm not trying to pick apart these actors and say that I think they were bad. I think they all did really good, but there was really a standout, and to me, it was Timothy and his mother. His mother is Lady Jessica, and her name is Rebecca Ferguson. She has a familiar face, but I didn't recognize her from anything. And she has a pretty big role. And I thought she did really well. I really did. I enjoyed her on screen. I thought her character and the position she's in with everything with the story and how it's going, I thought she was really good. So I enjoyed her. I thought I think it would probably be Timothy and her were probably like the big standouts. The other actress that I knew, and I only know from Spider-Man movies is Zendaya, and she plays Chani or Chani. She didn't really get a lot of we see her a lot, but we don't see her talking a lot. And cards on the table. I didn't think she was fantastic in the Spider-Man movies. That's just me. You can be mad at me for saying that. Whatever. She just didn't do anything for me in those movies. And in fact, I kind of disliked her character because of the way she acted. She was just really sort of like angry teen in that movie, brooding, and and I just wasn't feeling it. I thought that wasn't, and I don't think that's her fault, by the way. I think the character that was directed in that movie, the direction that they went with it. And again, I actually really liked the first movie, Homecoming. I think that one is a really good movie. I did not really like Far From Home that much. Watched it one time, and that was one enough for me. But so I'm not hating on the girl. I'm not trying to say she can't act. But that's the only thing I know her from. And she did fine. She did just fine. I'm not saying she was garbage, but again, she didn't have a whole lot of speaking parts. So take it as this is my opinion. It's worth what it costs. I think the cast was really strong. I think they all did really good. And I think the Paul and his mother, I thought they were kind of the standouts in terms of the acting. The other big name, and a lot, I don't know, it's so funny. His name is Stellan Skarsgård, and I've seen him in a lot of things, but he's one of those I just never remember his name. And he plays, I think it's just called the Baron. Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. Another, he is another actor that's been around. He's been doing it for decades. I got a lot of respect for him in terms of his acting. He's just one of those actors, like when you see him, it's like, oh, okay, he's good. I've seen him in a lot of movies, and I think he has a great range. I think he's a very talented actor. This character that he's playing, though, this Baron, if there was one weak character in terms of just the character, not the acting, I thought it was him. I thought the Baron was the weakest character, and he is the villain. So, I mean, I guess that, I guess you could say that's a spoiler, but if you've seen the trailers, you've seen him. I thought they did a great job of altering his look, because he's wearing a lot of prosthetics, and it's at first glance, I'm like, who is that him? And I was like, holy shit, that is him. Okay. Yeah. All right. I thought that the prosthetics, they really altered his look well, but I just thought that him as a character didn't really do much for me. They really tried to sell him as this like evil leader, just the leader you don't want to cross. And I understand. I did get that in terms of like, okay, he's a bad guy. He does bad things. He just didn't sell me on like that dude. Like he didn't make me uncomfortable. Like when villains make you feel uncomfortable and they make you feel like, dang, this dude's nuts. I would not want to be in a room with this cat. We'd be fighting. He didn't really do that for me. But I didn't think he was terrible. I just thought that was probably, if there's one character, I probably thought he was the weakest. What was the other thing here? Let's see. Okay. So I think we'll wrap it up with the cast there. That was pretty much everyone that I wanted to talk about. So the pacing of this movie, I think it's good if you're into cinematic, dramatic scenes. But, and there's a big caveat there, there's a lot of slow-mo shots, but it has that score underneath of it, and it really does a good job for me personally. This is just my personal how I feel about movies. When the music is good and when the score is good, I'm okay with slow-mo shots and big, I'm trying to think of the word, like big cinematic scenes that take their time to develop. I'm okay with it when the music is good and the score is powerful. For me, it worked. Even for me, I thought all of it worked, but I would have been totally okay if they would have chopped out some of that. That's just my take. My wife, now, like I say, I always tell you, I'm just a normie. My wife is like the normie of normies, so she did not like that, for real. She thought it was way too many slows. She was like, wow, they could have shaved off like 30 minutes of that movie and it wouldn't have been as long. And if they just would have stopped with all the stopping and staring and the walking slow. And I know for some people that bugs them, and I get it. But you know, it's up to you. You know, you're gonna have to fill that out for yourself. For me, it worked. For my normie wife, nope, didn't work. She didn't like that. But I thought that the panning shots of the landscapes, they did a really good job of showing you scale. And I think that sometimes that gets a little taken for granted because we see so many directors who their only goal is to emphasize how bigger and better they do it. And I haven't talked about this director before, but I'm not a big fan of J.J. Abrams. And he's one of those directors to me. Every time he does a movie, and it's usually somebody else's IP, it's got that, like, we got to do it bigger. We got to do a Death Star that's bigger and it's a planet and it takes out multiple, planets. It's just one of those things. And he's one of those directors where it's just like, you just know it's going to be a lot of the same stuff you've already seen and it's just going to be cranked up in size. This director, Denny, I think he does it in such a way that I respect the hell out of, because I love that feeling of just that grandiose scale. And when you see, nice panning long shots and you hear that music, again, the music, it really does help. I'm actually cool with it. So, and then sometimes, but again, like I said, my wife, my normie wife, she was like, they really didn't need to show like over and over how big the place was. So again, check it out for yourself. I really liked the lore. I thought the lore was good. I really did. Not knowing anything about it. It wasn't like crazy sci-fi. It wasn't one of those, like, you think, if you've seen the show, The Expanse, that show, everything is like really sci-fi. Like nothing is like standard that we know. It's not like it is now. And if it is, it almost seems antiquated, but I really I'm a big science fiction fan. I'm all in on sci-fi. And I thought this was a good enough where it kept me interested in what was going on. And I enjoyed the lore of the locals who were on the planet Arrakis. And I enjoyed, they didn't really, I would have liked to see more, of that. And I would have liked to have seen a little more science fiction stuff. That's just my taste. But I thought the lore and the story and the houses, and it sort of had that political struggle, that was going on with, you had these big empires that were working against each other. And I thought it was done well. I really did. I enjoyed it. I will say this though, they do not handhold you at all when they start talking. When the movie started, they just start talking like you just know who they are. And it's that, to me, I was like, okay, I gotta really pay attention. Like I kind of sat up in my seat, like I can't just chill and watch. I gotta, who's who? What's this? Who's this person? Why are they doing that? And that's another reason why I want to watch it again, because it really had that feeling of, there was so many things that I wanted to know, and they were just talking about things, and I wasn't picking up on everything, because when you first watch a movie, it's hard to pick up on every single thing. And this movie definitely did that for me. And it does not treat you in like, and which is, I respect. I really like that. Nothing annoys me more than when directors or writers, they explain a movie to you by exposition dumps. My name is so-and-so. I'm the last so-and-so. I live on planet blah, blah, blah. And this is what we do every day. That type of shit sucks. And it's like, it's the worst thing for me, because to me, that's a sign of a weak writer, because, and even a weak director as well, because a good director can direct the actors to project their emotions and their thoughts with just facial cues and body language, and also the dialogue. But when you just have two people standing there spitting exposition back and forth to fill us, the viewer, in on what's going on, it's lame. I can't stand that shit. It annoys the hell out of me. This movie, I think, did a really good job of explaining what they could. But again, there's a lot of information out there. Like, they just started talking about this house's name, and and I appreciate that they really kind of went in that direction. I really do, because like I said, I overall like this movie, and I want to see it again. I'm going to pay attention now, because I want to know. I want to know who's who and what's what, and what was that cost again. They talk about things like that, like the cost of a war, the cost of harvesting this I guess it's like I wouldn't call it a mineral, but it's a resource. So the whole planet of Arrakis, which is where the movie takes place mostly, it has this resource called spice, and spice is it's like the end all be all for resources. Like, it provides light speed travel, and the ability to travel through galaxies, that type of thing. It's one of those, but it has like hallucinogenic properties. It has healing properties. So I was interested. That was really cool. And I thought, and the movie really, the story really anchors itself to this resource. Not knowing the books, I'm sure that's all in the books too, but I really like that. I enjoyed it. It definitely had it was the motivator for a lot of people in this movie, for the whole movie mainly. The one thing about the story that I didn't like was, this wasn't terrible, but it does end abruptly. It does. It's going and going, and there was like, things were moving along at a good pace, and I was enjoying everything. But this is a 2.5-hour movie, and I could just tell, because we had been watching for me personally, the time just blew by. I didn't feel like I was like, oh, this is too long. I'm just a drag, and I can't wait for this over. But I can tell, you got that internal clock. I'm like, dang, we've been watching this for a minute. We got to be close to the end, but there's still things going on. And I knew that going in. So just be forewarned, it does end abruptly. And I believe that the story, the movie was 1/3 to 1/2 of the book. And I don't even know if there's more than one book. Like I said, I have no idea. I went into this blind. So I don't know if there's another book after this. I don't think so, but it does end. Like, it's like, we're going, it just ends. But it doesn't end in a way where I felt like, oh, this is crap. They leave you on it wasn't like Endgame. And I thought Endgame was actually good. I'm not Endgame, I'm sorry, Infinity War. It wasn't like Infinity War, where it just ended in like this really tragic way. It didn't have that feeling for me. But I, just be forewarned, it ended, and I knew that going in, that it was going to end kind of quick. But to me personally, I was like, can't wait to see the next one. I'm in. I'm all the way in. I can't wait to watch the next one. The other flaw that I saw, and I'm kind of a stickler for this one thing that I'm about to talk about, and that's fight choreography. It wasn't that good. The fight choreography was And I get that it's hard to do. I've taken martial arts before. I did martial arts for years, and for a few years, not like all my life or anything, but I've taken martial arts, and I've grew up watching boxing. I grew up watching, MMA. Sorry, drew a blank there. And when I really grew up, I grew up watching boxing, and then I transitioned more to like the MMA style fighting, and really got into it. And fighting's not easy, and it's not what you see in the movies. In real life fighting, it's nothing like in the movies. I get that. Totally understand. And I understand that when I go to a movie and I see a fight, or it's a movie about fighting, it's not going to be realistic, but I just make it look believable. Just make it look badass and make it look believable. And I thought that the fighting was kind of poor. There were, and when you have one person, and whether it's the villain or the hero, they take on multiple opponents at one time. In real life, it's just a mob. Just, if you have 6 guys and they're going to fight one guy, and that's just how it's going to, they're just boom, they're going to jump him. There's no, like, you just got to run, you have to be extremely talented in what you can do, physically. But, and I'm not one of those people, like I said, this one sticks to me. Like this one, I have a little bit, I don't have as much grace. I'm not going to give a lot of slack on this one. So when you have all these when you have all these opponents attacking one person, and if you pay attention to the opponents going after the sole person, that one person, they're just waiting on their cues. And when you watch good martial arts movies, and I'm talking about like you go back and you watch like, Bruce Lee's movies, Enter the Dragon, or you go back and you watch some of Jackie Chan's original stuff, Tony Jaa, and I think it's his name, Tony Jaa, and Ong Bak. When you watch those movies that are it's all about the fights. I think I think Hollywood, I wish they would spend a little bit more money and a little bit more time bringing in the people, the real martial artists who can really make a fight seem as realistic as possible. Because there were multiple times in this movie where you had one guy fighting and he's surrounded by other people, multiple targets, and it's just, you can just tell that they know they can't attack all at once, so they all take their turn, taking their swing. And it was actually I thought it was actually kind of slow. And I actually can appreciate when they speed up the film just a smidge to give the illusion of, because that's all movies are, they're just illusions. None of it's real, and I get that. But if they can kind of give that illusion of just fast hands and quick hands and, really good kicks and counters and grapples, and there's so many things that go into fighting in the fight choreography that I just thought was lacking. So that one kind of stuck out for me. That was probably, if there was one thing that I thought in this movie that I was like, there was one fight, the first fight that I saw, I thought it was done well, and it was because there was only 2 people, and the fight was good. In my mind, I was thinking, hey, this is cool. And they kind of revealed some of the lore. Like I said, I love the lore, the technology, the sci-fi stuff. And it intertwined well. I thought the lore of how they fight, the weapons that they use, and the things that they use to protect themselves, I thought it went well with the fighting. It's just the fighting itself, because that first fight, I thought it was good. I didn't think it was amazing, but I was like, hey, that's good. It's a good fight. I like it. And then as the movie picked up, there was obviously more fights that I just wasn't feeling. So, again, if you don't really care about that, you won't even notice. But I just do. Whenever I see a fight scene, and you see something like really bad, like The Last Jedi, that one right there, was that fight scene at the end of that movie is really bad. Like, if you go back and just watch just that fight scene was terrible, awful, where they even had to do editing just to make it work. After the fight was done, they were like, oh, we can't have this thing in here, so we had to remove it. So it wasn't like that bad, but it was kind of like I'm paying attention to the stuntman, and they're just, they're waiting for their cues. But overall, I think it's enjoyable in terms of the fights and stuff. I think it's enjoyable for sure, but I just don't go into it thinking that's going to be like, oh my god, the amazing fight scenes. At least for me, if you're a fan of martial arts movies, like old ones, especially like I am, you might not be feeling this. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. What I was going to cover. Let me see here. Yeah, that's pretty much all my information, or all the notes I had here. I will say this. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. I think it was totally worth my time. Absolutely. I think it respected my time. So much so that I probably will give this some money. And I wish I would have in the first place. I just didn't have the time to do it. But, Dune, I think it's worth seeing. Absolutely. Check it out. And, it's on HBO Max, I think is what it's called. It's on HBO Max until the 21st of November. So if you can't get out to a theater, or you don't want to go out to a theater, there's an option there for you. It's up to you, but I really do. I recommend going into the theater and seeing it and just getting the full experience. I think you'll appreciate it. But I think I'm going to leave it on that. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I would appreciate it if you gave me a like. And if you're not a subscriber, if you think the content's good, I appreciate the subscription. Click the notification bell, share it with your friends. And other than that, you guys have a great night, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.